There is an invisible strength found in silence that most will never understand. In a world that encourages constant expression, endless commentary, and open vulnerability, the act of restraint becomes rare, and yet more powerful than ever. The ability to hold back, to remain composed when every part of society demands disclosure, is not just discipline, it is dominance. What is kept within is not lost, it is refined. When thoughts are allowed to settle, they mature into clarity. When feelings are not rushed into the open, they gain perspective. Words have weight, and those who throw them freely often reveal more than they intend. But those who understand the power of what they don't say become immune to misinterpretation, manipulation, and misjudgment. They know that silence can never be misquoted. Silence cannot be twisted, nor can it be used against them. There is a certain mystique in discretion. When little is said, everything is questioned. Silence commands curiosity. It invites people to wonder, to analyze, to speculate, without offering them a single thread to pull. This is where true influence begins, not in the loud declarations of intent, but in the quiet confidence of reserved energy. No validation sought, no explanation offered, just presence, still, sharp, impenetrable, self-getrot, is not just about resisting what is wrong. It's about mastering when and how to reveal what is right. Not every truth must be spoken. Not every emotion needs expression. Not every achievement requires announcement. Some things grow best in private. Some victories mean more when savored quietly. Some truths are too sacred to be shared casually. Noise is often mistaken for strength, but noise is easy. Speaking without filter is effortless. What takes strength is the ability to pause, to sit with thoughts without sharing them, to feel emotion without broadcasting it, to hold plans without posting them. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strategic. It is the gap where real power lives. It's in that gap that thinking sharpens, motives clarify, and intentions crystallize. Holding back is not about fear. It is about focus. It is about being deliberate in what is allowed to leave the mind and enter the world. Because once it's out, it cannot be taken back. Words, once spoken, live in the minds of others forever. They become mirrors, weapons, or misunderstandings. But what remains inside, guarded and protected, is fully yours, untouched, untwisted, undisturbed. There is no value in exposing every layer. The more that's revealed, the more that's judged. And judgment is not always honest. It is rarely complete. People don't always listen to understand. Many listen to label, to categorize, to control. Every detail shared becomes ammunition for assumptions. But when you keep things to yourself, you rob others of that power. You deny them entry into your internal world. You give yourself space to evolve without commentary. Keeping things to yourself doesn't mean building walls. It means setting boundaries. It's a choice to remain intentional with your voice. It's choosing peace over performance, depth over display, control over chaos. It's the understanding that not every move deserves an audience, that sometimes silence is not the absence of voice, but the presence of mind. And in that silence, something extraordinary happens. Growth accelerates, confidence strengthens, decisions become cleaner, direction becomes clearer. You begin to operate at a level far above the noise, unaffected by outside perception, untouched by irrelevant chatter. You don't rise by shouting louder. You rise by staying focused while the world distracts itself. And focus requires silence. Let the world underestimate what it cannot read. Let them wonder what's happening behind your calm. That wonder is leverage. That stillness is control. The less you reveal, the more they imagine. The more they imagine, the more unpredictable you become. And unpredictability is power. So let others rush to speak. Let them announce every thought. react to every impulse, and share every update. There is no competition in noise. The real game is played in silence, and those who master it win quietly. True power begins where impulse ends. The strongest form of control isn't over others, it's over oneself. Mastery over your mind, your words, your reactions. That's where real dominance lives. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't clamor for recognition. It simply holds, observes, waits, and then acts with precision. Because the one who controls their urges, their emotions, their words, controls everything. The need to explain, to justify, to defend, is often a subtle form of desperation, a desire to be seen, heard, understood. But understanding is not owed, it is earned, and sometimes it's irrelevant. Control means releasing the need to be validated, and instead choosing to be strategic. It's about directing your focus, not scattering it. It's about keeping energy intact rather than leaking it through unnecessary expression. Impulse is easy, reaction is instinct, but control is a higher state. It requires discipline, presence, and a deliberate refusal to be moved by temporary emotion or external pressure. When something is said, not everything needs a response. When something is felt, not everything needs to be expressed. The moment you begin to govern what leaves your mind and exits your mouth, you begin to build an unshakable presence. True power begins where impulse ends. The strongest form of control isn't over others, it's over oneself. Mastery over your mind, your words, your reactions. That's where real dominance lives. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't clamor for recognition. It simply holds, observes, waits, and then acts with precision. Because the one who controls their urges, their emotions, their words, controls everything. The need to explain, to justify, to defend, is often a subtle form of desperation, a desire to be seen, heard, understood. But understanding is not owed, it is earned, and sometimes it's irrelevant. Control means releasing the need to be validated and instead choosing to be strategic. It's about directing your focus, not scattering it. There is also emotional control, the capacity to feel deeply without being derailed. This is one of the rarest strengths, to carry pain without displaying it, to experience anger without unleashing it, to hold excitement without exposing it. Emotional control is not about suppressing emotion, it's about managing it, guiding it, refining it. It's the choice to respond from intention rather than react from impulse. And then there's intellectual control, the ability to withhold your ideas, plans, and strategies until the moment is right. When you share your goals too early, they often attract noise, doubt, or interference. Control means nurturing your vision privately, letting it grow in silence until it's too solid to shake. Your next move loses power the moment it becomes public knowledge. A controlled mind doesn't rush to broadcast plans. It works quietly, building in the dark and letting results do the speaking. Control also brings stillness. Not the kind of stillness that means doing nothing, but the stillness of knowing that nothing external needs to shake your internal state. No comment, no opinion, no event has the power to disrupt the one who is anchored within. This type of control is rare, but it's what separates those who merely move with the world and those who influence its direction. To control what you give, when you give it, and how you give it, that is authority. In every word withheld, in every reaction restrained, in every silence chosen, there is a message being sent. I am not moved by chaos. I am guided by clarity. And clarity comes from space, space that is protected by control. Control is not about being rigid. It's about being intentional. It doesn't mean you never express, but that you know when and why you do. It means not everything deserves a response. Not every question deserves an answer. Not every invitation deserves a presence. It's knowing your value, protecting your peace, and never letting emotion or urgency speak for you. Control is calm in the storm. It is strength under pressure. It is power that doesn't need to prove itself because it already knows its worth. And once it's mastered, nothing external can shake the internal. That is the foundation of unbreakable power. There is a subtle, dangerous form of self-sabotage that often goes unnoticed: oversharing. It disguises itself as openness. It pretends to be confidence. It masks itself as honesty or emotional intelligence. But behind it lies a crack in one's personal armor. Every unnecessary detail revealed becomes a thread that someone else can pull. Every word spoken without discernment is an opportunity for someone to reshape, reuse, or weaponize it. Oversharing is not strength, it's exposure. The more that's given away without thought, the more fragile one becomes. In an age where people share every opinion, every emotion, every life event, silence has become a form of sophistication. Restraint is a rare virtue, and what is rare is power. There is a cost to giving away too much of yourself, whether it's your dreams, your pain, your plans, or your past. Every piece you hand over becomes part of a puzzle someone else can try to solve. Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts. Not everyone can be trusted to hold what you reveal. And the more that's shared, the more that power is transferred to others. Because once it leaves your mouth, it belongs to you. It belongs to interpretation. It belongs to judgment. It belongs to rumor, gossip, speculation. People are not always listening with empathy. Many listen with curiosity, with intent, with agenda. Not everyone asks to know you better. Some ask to know your weakness. Some wait for the moment you lower your guard. Oversharing opens the door for invasion of privacy, of peace, of integrity. Once the door is open, it's not always easy to close again. Clarity and vulnerability have their place, but they must be measured. Oversharing often comes from a desire to connect, to impress, to be understood, but what often results is the opposite. Connection built on instability, impressions clouded by too much information, and understanding twisted by others' biases. The more you explain, the more room you give for misunderstanding. The more you express, the more people feel entitled to comment. And the more you reveal, the more you dilute the core of who you are. There is a difference between being real and being reckless with your words. Transparency is a choice, not an obligation. And when done without wisdom, it becomes a liability. Those who speak less are not always quiet because they have nothing to say. They're quiet because they know the value of what they carry. They understand that mystery isn't deception, it's protection. What people don't know, they can't control. What they can't predict, they can't sabotage. And what they can't understand, they're forced to respect. Oversharing often stems from emotional leakage, the inability to sit with one's own feelings, to process them in silence, or to carry them without broadcasting. This lack of control doesn't make things better. It only weakens resilience. It makes everything public that was meant to be private. It turns sacred experiences into casual conversation. It turns long-term plans into open invitations for doubt. The truth is, most people talk too much, not because they have value to add, but because they are uncomfortable with the silence. Because silence requires strength. It requires patience. It requires you to live with your own thoughts, your own feelings, without validation. But in that space, power builds. In that quiet, clarity grows. And when the time comes to speak, the words have weight because they were chosen, not spilled. The moment you overshare, you lose leverage. You give others the upper hand by showing your entire playbook. You become predictable, readable, controllable. And in life, as in any game, predictability is weakness. When you are an open book, people stop reading for meaning and start scanning for vulnerability. Guard your thoughts, guard your emotions, guard your progress, not out of fear, but out of strength. The things that matter most should not be handed out like currency. They should be protected like treasure, because that's exactly what they are. To speak less is not to hide. It is to protect. It is to preserve the power of timing, of intention, of truth. Let your presence speak more than your words. Let your results answer questions before they're asked. And let your silence be the loudest proof of your discipline. Peace is not found in the noise of the world. It is found in the quiet corners where nothing needs to be proven, where thoughts can breathe without interruption, where emotions can settle without being questioned. Privacy is not the absence of connection, it is the presence of protection. It is a shield against interference, a filter against chaos, and a sanctuary for growth. Not everything is meant to be seen. Not everything is meant to be explained. There is wisdom in keeping certain aspects of life hidden, not out of secrecy, but out of sanctity. The most meaningful parts of a person's journey often happen behind closed doors, where intentions remain pure and distractions stay far away. Privacy is not isolation. It is insulation from opinions that do not matter, from noise that does not serve, and from attention that is not earned. When life is lived too openly, it becomes vulnerable to the winds of public opinion. Every word spoken, every step taken becomes a topic for commentary, a target for criticism, or a subject of misunderstanding. But what is kept private is kept whole. It is allowed to evolve without interruption. It is given space to form its own identity without needing to be shaped by approval or validation. And in that space, peace thrives. In a world where exposure is glorified, privacy becomes rebellion. It is choosing stillness over spectacle. It is choosing to grow without broadcasting every phase of growth, to heal without announcing the wound, to move forward without narrating the journey. This kind of inner quiet is powerful. It is where clarity sharpens, decisions strengthen, and confidence is no longer tied to public affirmation. Privacy does not mean cutting off the world. It means choosing what to share and when to share it. It means recognizing that some moments are too valuable to be placed under a microscope. Some progress is too fresh to be dragged into discussion. Some joy is too pure to be placed on display. The more sacred something is, the less it needs attention from the outside world. When fewer people are involved, fewer opinions disrupt. When fewer voices enter your world, your own voice becomes clearer. This is the peace that privacy offers. The ability to listen to yourself without interruption, to think deeply without distraction, to live freely without the constant need to explain or justify. It removes the noise, the pressure, the distortion, and brings everything back into focus. Privacy strengthens boundaries, and strong boundaries protect energy. Every unnecessary conversation avoided is energy preserved. Every unsolicited opinion deflected is clarity defended. In the silence of privacy, everything becomes lighter, less burdened by noise, less cluttered by expectations. Peace flows, not because nothing happens, but because nothing uninvited enters. Not all progress is meant to be seen. Some of the most important changes happen quietly. The decision to walk away, the discipline built in solitude, the mindset shift that alters the direction of a lifetime. These transformations don't need an audience. They need privacy. Because privacy gives room for mistakes without judgment, space for recalibration without distraction, and freedom to start again without interference. There is a reason why the most resilient people protect their lives from public view. It is not secrecy, it is strategy. When no one knows your next move, no one can block it. When no one hears your doubts, no one can amplify them. When no one sees your vulnerabilities, no one can exploit them. Privacy is not about hiding, it is about honoring your own process without letting the world dissect it. And even joy, when kept private, multiply. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't need to be paraded. It simply exists, pure, untainted, and undisturbed. Because peace isn't found in attention. Peace is found in contentment. And contentment often grows in silence. Let the world assume, let others speculate. Their curiosity is not your concern. Every moment spent explaining is a moment lost in experience. Privacy is the refusal to dilute your life for the consumption of others. It is a declaration that your journey is yours, and that is more than enough. There is a profound resilience that forms in silence. An unshakable kind of strength that does not depend on recognition, noise, or applause. It is not loud, it is not obvious, but it is solid, grounded, and immovable. Silence is where inner power is forged, layer by layer, moment by moment, away from the expectations of the world. In silence, there is no performance. There is no need to impress, no urgency to respond. There is only stillness, and within that stillness, the mind sharpens, the soul steadies, and strength quietly multiplies. Silence is not empty, it is full of depth. It is the place where clarity is born, where emotions are refined, and where self-awareness becomes razor sharp. The strongest individuals are not those who always speak the most or stand at the center of attention. They are the ones who have mastered the art of withholding, of waiting, of not reacting. Strength is not proven in outbursts. It is revealed in restraint. The ability to sit with discomfort, to resist the urge to react, to observe without the need to respond. That is control. And control, sustained in silence, becomes unbreakable strength. Noise is often a mask for uncertainty. It fills the gaps where discipline should be. But silence forces confrontation with thought, with feeling, with intention. And only those with the courage to face themselves fully can stand in that silence without being overwhelmed by it. Silence does not flatter the ego. It confronts it. It humbles it. And through that humility, strength is born, not of pride, but of inner certainty. When silence becomes a discipline, it turns into a force, which becomes the foundation upon which calmness stands. Not the passive kind of calm that fades in the face of conflict, but the grounded kind that endures pressure without breaking. It is a calm that does not flinch, that does not beg to be heard, that does not need to prove anything. This kind of strength does not seek approval, it creates peace. And peace, when chosen in silence, becomes a fortress. Strength built in silence is not shaken by temporary storms. It has already endured the chaos of the mind, the pull of emotion, the distraction of impulse. It has withstood the noise and chosen stillness. It has rejected the temptation to respond to every whisper, every challenge, every provocation. And because it has already conquered itself, it cannot be conquered by anything outside. The practice of silence is a test. It reveals what controls you: your ego, your need to defend, your hunger to be understood. But when silence becomes a habit, those needs begin to dissolve. What remains is discipline, a deeper focus, a sharpened presence, and a self that no longer needs external permission to exist fully. This is where real strength lives, not in reaction, but in intention, not in visibility, but in internal stability. Silence also teaches patience. In a world that moves fast, that demands instant reaction, silence is a form of resistance. It slows everything down. It creates space between stimulus and response. And in that space, better decisions are made. Silence trains the mind to think clearly before acting, to understand before responding, to observe fully before forming judgment. And the more silence is chosen, the more automatic that discipline becomes. There is also strength in knowing that not everything needs to be addressed, that every attack doesn't require a counter, that every misunderstanding doesn't demand clarification, that every insult doesn't deserve energy. Silence becomes strength when it is used as a choice, not as a lack of words, but as a presence that stands firm in itself. And silence creates endurance. It conditions the mind to be comfortable with solitude, to not fear the absence of voices or feedback. It separates false validation from true worth. it forces growth from within, because in silence, no one is clapping, no one is watching, no one is cheering. And if strength can grow in that space, it is real, it is stable, it is lasting. When silence becomes part of your discipline, strength no longer needs to announce itself. It is felt, it is sensed, it is known. Not because it's loud, but because it's undeniable. That is the strength silence builds. Not the kind that needs to be seen, but the kind that is impossible to ignore. Power is not only in what is said, but also in what is deliberately left unsaid. The urge to voice every thought, to react to every comment, to explain every feeling, these are traps. They disguise themselves as expression, but often dilute clarity and compromise strength. True mastery lies in discernment, the ability to choose silence not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Not every opinion deserves airtime. Not every emotion deserves to be verbalized. Not every experience demands an audience. There is a tendency in the world to assume that voicing something gives it validity, that speaking makes it more real. But the truth is, some things lose their power the moment they are spoken. They lose meaning, lose direction, become distorted by interpretation. What is held in silence remains pure, intact, and whole. Every time something is voiced, it is released into a space that may not be ready to receive it, respect it, or understand it. And that is a risk. Not everything needs to be aired. Some thoughts are meant to stay in the mind. Some feelings are meant to be processed quietly. Some perspectives are meant to mature in solitude before ever touching the surface of another person's awareness. Speaking prematurely often leads to misunderstanding, misrepresentation, and misalignment. There is also danger in speaking simply to fill the silence. Noise for the sake of noise serves no purpose. The world is saturated with voices, most of them reactive, unfiltered, and impulsive. It takes no strength to speak. It takes discipline to wait, to withhold, to ask, does this need to be said? Does this carry value? Or is it just a momentary impulse? When this pause becomes habit, words begin to carry weight again. Selective silence is not avoidance. It is not suppression. It is strategy. It is strength refined into awareness. When practiced, it becomes an armor. Because what isn't spoken can't be twisted. What isn't revealed can't be attacked. And what isn't offered can't be rejected. Not everything deserves a voice, because not every space is safe. Not every person is trustworthy. Not every moment is worthy of your truth. Even internal conversations must be governed. Giving voice to self-doubt, to fears, to irrational emotions only feeds them. The more they are repeated, the more real they feel. But silence can be a form of resistance against what does not serve. By refusing to speak life into fear, chaos, or confusion, space is created for clarity to return. The words not spoken become barriers against negativity. There's also a time to observe without comment, to witness, to absorb, and to stay still. Speaking too soon often reveals too much, especially in situations where patience would have been the better teacher. Words spoken in haste rarely carry wisdom, but silence allows perception to sharpen. It creates room for deeper understanding. And sometimes the best move is no voice at all, just presence. Holding back from speaking is not weakness, it is restraint. And restraint is the foundation of inner control. It doesn't mean being passive. It means choosing powerfully when to be active. Not everything deserves your energy. Not every disagreement deserves your defense. Not every argument needs your logic. Sometimes strength is proven not by how well you speak, but by how firmly you stay quiet. There is a false belief that being vocal equals being strong, but loudness is not leadership. Presence is. And presence can be silent, a calm that doesn't flinch, a stillness that doesn't collapse. When words are rare, they are listened to. When silence is consistent, it creates gravity. It draws attention without asking for it. It commands respect without demanding it. The mind must be trained to distinguish between what is urgent and what is important. Urgency screams, "Speak now." Wisdom whispers, "Wait." The more that distinction is mastered, the more powerful every action becomes. Not everything deserves a voice. Some things deserve discipline. Some things deserve distance. And some things deserve to fade without ever being given the dignity of your attention. Silence is not just the absence of sound. It is the presence of focus. And when it is chosen with intention, it becomes a filter for everything that doesn't deserve space in your world. What you do not voice, you do not give life to. What you do not respond to, you rise above. And what you do not entertain, you do not empower. There is a distinct shift that occurs when maturity takes root. Not a loud transformation, but a quiet evolution. It shows not in grand declarations, but in subtle restraint. In the moments when the words are ready, the emotions rise. The point is clear, and yet silence is chosen, not out of fear, not out of indifference, but out of control. That is maturity. Maturity is not needing to have the last word. It is not feeling compelled to correct every misunderstanding. It is not rushing to defend every opinion or prove every point. Maturity understands that clarity does not always require expression. Truth doesn't beg to be heard, and wisdom does not waste itself in noise. What must be known will be known, and what does not matter is allowed to pass by without response. Staying quiet is not silence of the weak, it is silence of the wise. It is a calm refusal to be dragged into chaos, drama, or small thinking. Maturity knows that some battles are not worth entering. Some arguments are not worth winning. Some invitations to conflict are best left unanswered. Not because the response isn't ready, but because it is unnecessary. The higher the ground, the less the noise below matters. It takes strength to bite the tongue when ego wants to speak. It takes even greater strength to sit with the discomfort of being misunderstood and not rush to correct it. Maturity no longer reacts to everything. It selects, it sifts, it saves its energy for what truly moves the needle. Because not every opinion deserves time, and not every conflict is a challenge to be met. Sometimes, silence is the most eloquent reply. When growth takes over, silence becomes a strategy, not a default. It is no longer born out of shyness or insecurity. It is chosen from clarity. A clear mind does not need noise. It does not require affirmation from others to validate itself. It does not seek to be understood in every moment. It understands itself. And that understanding is more valuable than any short-term recognition. Maturity is also the recognition that timing matters. That truth, when spoken at the wrong time, can still become a weapon. That honesty, when not paired with wisdom, can harm more than it heals. There are truths best delivered with silence. There are emotions best digested privately. There are realizations that serve only you and need no audience to fulfill their purpose. It is not silence for the sake of suppression. It is silence for the sake of preservation. It protects peace. It protects progress. It guards dignity. Maturity has no desire to be seen reacting emotionally to temporary triggers. It has no interest in being dragged into discussions that subtract more than they add. It values long-term power over short-term satisfaction. And that's why it walks away more often. That's why it lets things go. That's why it holds back when others cannot. This quiet discipline transforms presence. It allows others to speak while offering nothing in return, and yet still holding the weight of the room. Because presence is no longer tied to participation. Maturity knows that silence, when used wisely, is far louder than words ever could be. It makes others think. It creates space for reflection. It sets the tone for authority without shouting for attention. Stillness is not passivity. It is power. It is observation. It is awareness sharpened by discipline. Maturity watches longer before it acts. It listens more than it speaks. And when it speaks, it does so with intention. Not for attention, not for applause, but because it's time and only then. To stay quiet when everything in you wants to shout, that is power. To be calm when everything around you is chaos, that is power. To choose peace over proving a point, that is power. And to know when a word adds value and when it takes it away, that is maturity. Let the noise belong to the world. Let the distractions echo around you. Let others fight for attention, for validation, for fleeting applause. Choose differently. Choose silence and not as an escape, but as a weapon, not as weakness, but as strength refined to its purest form. Make silence your power. Let it become the tool through which you protect your mind, preserve your energy, and assert your control. Silence is not doing nothing. It is doing only what matters. It is not absence. It is presence, distilled. It is presence without performance, awareness without reaction, discipline without display. Silence sharpens perception. It magnifies intention. It separates the essential from the irrelevant. The more it is practiced, the more precise you become mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Make silence your strategy. Let it guide you before every decision. Let it shield you before every reaction. Let it remind you that not everything needs to be addressed, not everything deserves your voice, not everything should be allowed into your space. Your silence speaks volumes when it comes from a place of clarity. It shows that you are no longer moved by every wave, no longer shaken by every word, no longer drawn into every conflict. Build a life that does not depend on constant explanation. One that is so aligned with your values, so clear in your intent, so rooted in inner stability, that silence becomes your default state, not because you have nothing to say, but because you have nothing to prove. Let others speak out of compulsion. You speak when it counts. Let others rush to be heard. You move with precision. Let others explain themselves endlessly. You let your results speak. Turn silence into a filter. Let it be the line that separates your focus from the world's chaos. If it distracts, silence it. If it drains, walk away. If it doesn't serve, let it go unacknowledged. Every time you choose silence instead of reaction, you elevate. You create room for better thoughts, stronger intentions, deeper growth. And in that space, real transformation begins. Silence trains you to listen, not just to the world, but to yourself. It allows you to hear the truth beneath the noise, the instincts that guide you, the emotions that warn you, the clarity that calls you. These things are not found in conversation. They are uncovered in solitude. And only when the mind is silent can it hear what actually matters. Make silence your boundary. Let it stand between you and the things that try to pull you backward into drama, into distraction, into small thinking. You don't owe access to everyone. You don't owe explanations for your peace. You don't owe your energy to things that deplete you. Silence is not retreat, it is refusal. Refusal to engage in what dims your light or disturbs your direction. Let your silence become confidence, not arrogance, not indifference, but a quiet, steady assurance that you are not ruled by impulse, by validation, or by fear. You know your path. You know your values. You know who you are. And because of that, you don't need to shout it, you embody it. And that embodiment is more powerful than any speech, any argument, any defense. Make silence your advantage. Let it confuse those who expect reaction. Let it disarm those who seek control. Let it empower you to move without being seen, to act without being announced, to win without needing approval. The less you speak of your plans, the more freedom you have to change them. The less you explain your decisions, the more authority you hold over them. The less you react to noise, the more peace you preserve. Silence will not always be easy, but it will always be worth it. It will test you. It will challenge your ego. It will demand patience and poise and unwavering presence. But on the other side of that discipline is a power few possess. The power to control yourself. The power to master your responses. The power to lead your life with intention, not emotion. So choose silence. Let it become the language of your growth, the rhythm of your power, the armor of your peace. In a world addicted to noise, your silence will not make you invisible. It will make you unforgettable. In a time when everyone is speaking, your quiet control will stand out. And in moments where others fall apart, you will remain steady, composed, unshaken. Make silence your power and let it speak for you.